Big changes are coming to the Blue Jays. There's going to be some changes with the automatic ball strike system in baseball, and we're going to have a lot more talk about players that were mid-range, mid-round values, all coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. Our podcast is now brought to you by the folks at Home Run Forecast and DraftKings with a new Pick6 app. You can use code RWPicks. Download. New customers can play $5, get 50 in Pick6 credits. Fred, lot to talk about. We'll stay local. We'll go first there with your Toronto Blue Jays. Lots going on change-wise there. Let's start off in the bullpen. Yimi Garcia, after some speculation for 24 hours, did indeed go on the IL yesterday.
Yeah, it looks like, I know you and Scott were talking about Nate Pearson, but it looks like maybe Chad Green leads what I think, but I honestly think it's a closer committee. I think this one's a true closer committee. I think Yimi Garcia was for sure the Blue Jays best reliever this year. So he was the guy with Romano out, but now I think it'll be a full committee. I think it could be Nate Pearson, but I don't think it'll be a guy. It could be a lefty when they need a lefty. It could be Genesis Cabrera or something like that when they need a lefty, but I don't. Chad Green hasn't pitched well enough at the start of the year. I actually have Chad Green in the Tout Wars draft and hold, thinking of this exact moment. Actually, I thought he maybe could have been the Jays' second best reliever this year. He has been really good. 1.76 ERA, 0.85 WHIP. I don't know. He just doesn't feel.
He's already had a trip to the IL himself, too.
Yeah, I know, and he hasn't been back from that for too long. I think he's the best candidate. When I heard you and Scott talking, I wanted to shout through, but it was too late. It was Monday morning. I wanted to shout through my podcast and be like, no, Jeff, Nate Pearson only got that other save because Chad Green had already pitched in the game.
Yeah. And I actually knew that too, but I think I just kept seeing Green pitch in the 6th and 7th innings. And I thought that maybe they'd be comfortable with that. Plus, I think in some cases, Green wasn't even available in some leagues, some of my deeper leagues.
I should maybe give Green a little more. I don't know. He's on the surface, he's been effective, outside the IL stint, but he has a 4.83 FIP. He's given up 3 home runs already, which is what's doing it to him on the FIP. But I don't know. He'd be my guy. If I was going to roster a Blue Jays reliever for a few days, he'd be my guy.
Yeah. Okay. Jordan Romano is throwing. But he doesn't throw from the mound, I think, until Wednesday is the first time, if I read that correctly. Garcia is obviously going to be gone for at least 2 weeks. The good news is the MRI was pretty good, but yet he still ended up on IL anyhow, and it's a nerve thing, which is kind of nervy, kind of scary. I know some people were even speculating at the time that they were kind of covering up when they took him out and saying it was kind of a non-injury injury, but it turns out it's actually injury.
That's right. Yeah. I think anytime if you're a pitcher and it feels like nowadays, if you're a pitcher and you come out of the game, you're going on the IL. When he came out of the game, I thought there's no chance he's not going on the IL. Even if it's just tightness or something, he's going on the IL. So hopefully it's not too long. Would you drop Garcia if Romano's back? Could Romano be back by this weekend? I think he could be. So
my guess is, given that it was his second trip to the IL, he's going to need some rehab outings. Yeah. My guess is you won't see Romano to midweek next week.
Yeah, maybe.
Before Garcia, but I don't know.
Right. So I think Romano, I've always thought that no matter how Garcia pitched, Romano would come back as a closer. He would have to lose the job. Where
they did a pretty good job of losing the job.
Well, I know, but then he went on the IL. So now the party line will be he was hurt. So I think he would have to come back, pitch poorly, not go on the IL, lose I don't know. I think he's still a closer. Whether I would keep Garcia or not, I guess just depended on how desperate I was for saves.
Yeah,
that's it. If I owned Romano, I'd probably keep Garcia and just see how this whole thing plays out for the rest of June. If I didn't and I had 2 other closers, then maybe I'd drop Garcia now.
I think that's about the right construction.
Yeah.
It's news doesn't stop there. Bichette went on the IL today with the calf strain. He's been out already for 4 games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was retroactive. He didn't play yesterday, right?
He hasn't played for a few days. Just pulling up, see the last day he played. Sometimes when you watch the team more of as a fan, like than a fantasy owner, you don't keep track of those the same. But anyways, June 14th was, so they could backdate it 3 days now, which I'm sure they'll do. So,
and
so
I
he
just
may
saw
not
it
be out for
retroactive to
long.
Saturday. It was indeed.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess if you have Bichette in any sort of partial week teams like NFBC teams, you probably didn't start him the first half of the week anyways. Because he wasn't in the lineup yesterday, probably, like, assuming you did a good job with your roster and had options. So anyway, so maybe you end up only missing him for this week, and maybe you can start him early next week or the middle of next week. He wasn't really doing anything for you anyways. So 4 home runs, 4 steals, like 237 average. So it's not really much of a loss. This is not like Mookie Betts. Like,
Right.
It was supposed to be a loss when you lose Bo Bichette, but it hasn't been. Based on how
it's still a big loss though, because come on, you're still using him every single week, hoping he turns it around. You're not benching him. At least you hadn't been until this past weekend. I think I wonder though, it is a calf injury. We know those sometimes tend to linger. I wonder how long he'll be out. And I'm also intrigued by their call up, or Elvis Martinez, who got the call. I don't think he's starting tonight because it's just too soon, but too quick of a turnaround. You might see IKF a lot at shortstop, but I'm intrigued about Martinez and seeing if he might possibly be a long-term replacement. What say you?
Yeah, so Blue Jays fans will know Martinez really well because he's been, probably the Blue Jays' buzziest hitting prospect. Like, I know Horwitz and Addison Barger got up first, but Martinez is the guy who kind of excites people because of the power skills. So he's already hit 16 home runs in the minors this year. He strikes out a lot. He's hitting 260 in the minors, so it's likely that he'll hit for a low average in the majors. But the Blue Jays, I think, still, they might rank last in baseball in the home runs. They're right down there. I know when I wrote an article a few days ago, they were last in home run to fly ball rate. Like, this has been a very powerless team this year, kind of led by Bichette, who, with only the 4 home runs. Vladdy, we've talked about, has got the batting average back up. It's 284, but he only has 7 home runs. Springer with the dismal season, etc. Anyways, this team really lacks power. Horwitz doesn't add power. Horwitz can hit leadoff. He can get on base. That's cool. Doesn't add power. Barger hasn't really done anything much yet. I don't know if that's going to turn out to be anything or not. Martinez is the guy who profiles differently than how the Blue Jays have hit so far this year. Fans are excited about him. I think he's going to get to start a bunch of games. I think he'll, I think you'll see, like you said, you'll see IKF at shortstop. Ernie Clements hit okay, so he probably gets some third base starts, but I think Martinez gets some starts at third. Actually, the way the Blue Jays are playing, if Martinez hits, he plays. Like, the way they're hitting, like, he can DH for Justin Turner, who doesn't hit well. They can do things like they're doing today and push George Springer to the bench and move guys to the outfield. Either way, I think if Martinez hits, and the Blue Jays, I think, are in desperation mode. Like, this is an organization where the front office is very much on the hot seat. Last year was supposed to be a bit of a turning point. They made the playoffs again, but didn't do anything again. This year was supposed to be another uptick, at least stay even. They've had a big decline. The bullpen's a big part of the problem, but the offense is a big part of the problem too. And anyone who hits is getting in this lineup right now.
Yeah, and they wish they could be in the NL, where it's just a cesspool of mediocrity.
Yep.
Instead, they're in the AL, where the third wild card is the Twins at 40 and 32.
Yeah.
They're behind the Red Sox, 2.5 games behind the Red Sox. There, but for the grace of God, go the Rays. I mean, the Rays are a game behind them even, but the Jays are 5 games out in the wild card. Whereas if they had that 35 and 37 record in the NL, they'd be a half game out. Which just shows you just where it could be. And also, I just think they'd be playing lesser competition in the NL as well. I think that's the other thing that works against them. But, you said changes are afoot. No George Springer today is one. And, I think Jays want to see, fight back with Spencer Horwitz. They want to see more Davis Schneider. At least they've got him as a regular player now and high up in the lineup. They want to see a lot more of that. And you want to see Martinez. They want to see someone from the outside, frankly, too. You don't want to see this. Oh, we just have to do better. They don't even have the excuse of injured player coming back unless it is Bichette. I tweeted something out yesterday because I heard it on a broadcast already. Like, one team team's announcers speculating about a returning player coming back around the trade deadline. You don't want to have that our injured player is our trade deadline acquisition comment there. You don't want to have that. You want actual new blood. But the problem is you got to stay close enough for it to matter.
Yeah, and they may not. I really think that this could end up being a bit of a lost season, at which point guys like Martinez, Horwitz, Barger, they might help some people keep their jobs in the front office if they can perform well enough. So they need these guys. They need them. They need to give them a chance and see how they play. Guerrero and Bichette aren't going anywhere yet, but I can see the Jays being sellers. I know you and Scott have talked about how few NL teams will be sellers because it's so clustered.
I think how few teams, period, will be sellers.
Well, then the sellers will need to come from the AL, and it could be a team like the Jays who are like, we can get rid of Justin Turner. They probably can't give away George Springer right now, the way he's playing with his contract. But they might try.
I think they will try and agree to take on some of his contract to improve the prospect coming back. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it's going to work because no team's going to trade a real prospect for Springer right now under that contract.
I think they might give him away. If they could not take on any of the contract, I think they would give him away.
Could he be this year's Alex Anthopoulos outfield edition? A la Jorge Soler and Eddie Rosario and Adam Duvall, like it was in 2021. Could that be a thing?
I think it's possible. It's a 6-year contract. So what's he got this year and 2 more years? Geez, at $25 million a year. The thing is he was decent last year. So,
yeah, he was.
So we're not that far away. This isn't someone, his OPS last year was 732. That's not actually, it's decent barely. It's steep decline. The year before 814, the year before 907, he's basically dropped 100 points a year for 3 straight years. It's pretty ugly. I think they'll have to pick up some of the contract if they want to move him. But I do think in a market where not a lot of teams will be selling, the Blue Jays could trade Danny Jansen, who they really like, but he's a free agent at the end of the year. They could always try to bring him back, but they could trade him at first. So anyways, Kiermaier would be a great bench player, right? Defensive replacement in the late innings, can steal the odd base on a contending team. So I could see a lot of these Blue Jays. And if they wanted to get into the pitching, the one thing they have is starting pitching.
Yeah,
that other teams would really want, like Chris Bassett, Kikuchi, like these guys could help teams a lot.
One other Jays note, we promise we won't make it all Jays talk, but Yariel Rodriguez, he's going into the rotation this week and he's back from the IL. Will they stretch him out this time? Is he worth looking at investing into this time now that Alek Manoah is out?
Yeah, I think they'll stretch him out more than they did before. We just didn't get very deep into it before. Like his last start before he went on the IL was 82 pitches, which isn't bad. Like if we could stretch him into the 90s, I think that could happen. The problem is if they don't stretch him out much, he needs to be more efficient. Like in his 4 starts, and they were short starts, he walked 8 batters. So if he's going to walk a batter every 2 innings, it's going to be hard for him to throw. He's going to struggle to get through 5 innings at a pitch count of let's even say 90. So I think he has some potential. There's some strikeout potential. We've seen that in his rehab assignment. We've seen that his first 2 starts this year, he combined for 13 strikeouts. So there's some strikeout potential there. I didn't look to add him in any leagues. I'm not super pitching desperate right now. So I didn't, I don't know. And those are all 15 team leagues. I'm a little bit wait and see. And if someone else picks them up, I'm okay with that.
All right. Very good. One more news and note from today. We got other news and notes from yesterday we still want to hit as well, but another one from today. Justin Verlander, tentatively scheduled to start on Wednesday or Thursday this week, instead now has been placed on the 15-day DL himself. The Astros, they cannot keep pitchers healthy. Verlander is the latest. He missed a start over the weekend. Now he's out for a little bit longer. This is tough. We tentatively have penciled in Eric Lauer to go into the rotation to replace him. Lauer has got like a 6 ERA at AAA, albeit in the PCL, which you have to take with the appropriate grain of salt.
Yeah, hard to get too excited about Eric Lauer. I've been through the fantasy ringer with him enough times over the years. Verlander is interesting to me in that he's up to 57 innings. I can't remember how many innings I projected him for this year. I think it was like 130 or so. I think last year he threw 162, And with him now being on the other side of, like, he's actually 41 now. I guess he was on the other side of 40, I guess, last year when he was 40. But anyways, I thought going into the year, like, I don't have any Verlander shares because I just couldn't project him for that many innings. Like I said, I think maybe I did 130. I don't know if he'll even get to that. He's at 57. Let's say this injury is not a long-term injury, like it's neck discomfort, so maybe it'll just be a couple starts. Still, we're probably looking at him sitting around 70 innings by the All-Star break, maybe 75. I don't know, we'll see where this all goes, but could he be someone else who gets traded this again?
I think he absolutely could. And and one other note on Verlander, remember his earlier stretch was out with the shoulder, and often neck and shoulder are connected there too. So don't think we're out of the woods that it could, it's neck discomfort right now, but it could be worse. Could be worse than they're letting on. If we're going to talk about the Jays as potential sellers, and you should, given the composition of their roster and all that, but they're better than the Astros right now. The Astros are at 33 and 39. They're 7 games out of the wild card, tied with the Rangers. That's the funny thing about the AL is, like, certain teams like the Blue Jays. Oh, what a disappointment. Going to be sellers. Oh, Rangers and Astros, they can't sell. They're contenders, and part of that is how they're built. Once they do decide to tear down, it's going to be like pretty significant. But with the Rangers, they built for this year. They won the World Series last year, obviously. They've had so many pitcher injuries. The Astros, they were in the ALCS last year. They're built to win now too. They're not built for a teardown. So, like, it's going to be like a really painful stretch once they do decide to do that, which makes me think they're going to prolong that decision as long as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I could see the Astros not being like major sellers, but doing, like, they've depleted their farm system with a lot, like, they've been on the other end of a lot of these summer trades over the last few years. Good for them. But trading someone like Verlander to get something back, like, to a contending team if he's healthy at the end of July, to me that makes some sense. Like, it's not a sell-off, it's just we're going to recalibrate for next year. Because you look at this lineup, like Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Diaz, like, they have Peña, like, they have a lot of really good pieces there. They could Kyle Tucker obviously leaving out because he's hurt right now, but maybe the biggest piece or second biggest piece, one or the other. They could be really good again next year. This year they haven't pitched well enough, especially starting pitching. Right. I think this is a year for them maybe to sell and just kind of recalibrate for next year and just say, hey, we'll be right back in it. Our fans have been spoiled. We're going to be right back in it next year. But yeah, we'll trade a couple guys and maybe Ryan Presley goes because they have Hader now locked up long-term. People would love to have Presley or Brian Abreu in their bullpen in the playoffs. So I think they can make some of those moves. Absolutely. I think those are the kind of teams that should think about it if there is a dearth of teams selling. Yeah.
I don't think Josh Hader goes because he's got a 5-year deal. Yeah. Otherwise, relievers, but maybe Ryan Presley goes. Yeah. Along with Abreu that you mentioned there. Yeah. That's a possibility. I think that's possible. That'll be a team that'll take it all the way down to the stretch though, before they actually make a decision to do that. And that's just the thing. I think we're going to be like antsy for progress, and we're going to want these trades, and it's going to be like the White Sox that are holding all the cards, maybe the A's with Bobby Miller, but what do the Angels have to trade? That's one of the other teams that's a definite seller. It's like, well, okay, yeah, they're a seller unless they decide to trade Mike Trout,
Right.
Okay, I'm underwhelmed. That's the problem with having such a bad team in the first place. All right. Before we go over some more news and notes, though, we got to share something. We have a new sponsor. DraftKings jumped aboard this week with their new Pick6 game that they have. Did you ever play the over-under game with your friends? Think I can eat that slice of pizza in under 30 seconds? Or I know it'll take you over a minute to down that 2-liter? If you have, then you're going to love Pick6, the new fantasy game from DraftKings. Here's how to play during baseball season. Pick between 2 and 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat, like runs, hits, strikeouts, and more. Track your picks and play against others for a shot to win huge cash prizes. That's all there is to it. Download the new DraftKings Pick6 app and use code RWPicks. New customers play $5 and get 50 in Pick6 credits. That's code RWPicks for new customers to play $5 and get 50 in Pick6 credits only on DraftKings Pick6. The crown is yours. 1 per customer. Non-withdrawable Pick6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 plus in most eligible states. Not available in all states, including New York and Connecticut. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. You can use the RotoWire Picks tool and the brand new app that goes with it to help you do well on DraftKings Pick6. I highly recommend that. Thanks to DraftKings for jumping on board with us. More notes from what happened over yesterday. There's a lot of stuff that happened. The Phillies made a bunch of moves, including bringing back Trey Turner.
Yeah, Trey Turner's back. That is going to create a bit of a logjam maybe in their infield since Edmundo Sosa had hit really well. I was using him on a couple of teams. Like he hit really well filling out shortstop. But anyway, Sosa is going to be, unfortunately, is going to be a cut in any leagues where you still have him. Turner, yeah, it seems to be full go. Got a couple hits last night, is right back in the lineup tonight. Sosa filled in well, but man, having Turner back makes that lineup, which is already really good, look even more dangerous.
Yeah, indeed. And they had to do some other juggling. They sent down they chose David Dahl over Johan Rojas, which I thought was interesting. They also they also are kind of like mixing and matching there, like you said, with everybody else there. But it's that they have the strength to tinker though too. The fact that they have a player like Rojas who could start for a lot of teams be sent down just shows a lot. I did have him going in the RotoWire Staff Keeper League as a cheap guy. Now probably going to be a cut for me next week because I just can't afford that as I'm a contending team. Can't wait for those players to come back because you never know when Rojas is going to come back.
Yeah, he'll be back at some point. I can't give David Dahl any credit. Like at first I was like, oh, this is really cool. Because we all remember when David Dahl started with the Rockies and hey, Dahl's earned a job. He hasn't actually earned the job. He hasn't hit well at all. It's actually more of a Rojas decision. I think they just feel like he needs some more work in the minors. He just wasn't getting the job done, but Dahl hasn't actually been any better. So Brandon Marsh, who's in left actually tonight, but he will play some center field, a lot of center field going forward. Dahl in the lineup, not all the time, but some of the time. There is a little more of a path now if Whit Merrifield could get his back going to maybe get some more starts in the outfield. He hasn't started in the outfield much this year, but he can play the outfield a bit. Like he played it a lot last year in Toronto. So there is that possibility. And like Whit Merrifield, like he's been a pretty good fantasy contributor when he's playing well. Like last year, 11 homers, 26 steals in the 272 average. But this year, his bat's just really been cold. I wondered if they would give him a little more of a run. But so far they haven't. Like he hasn't started either of the two games this week.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yankees news. Gerrit Cole's coming back tomorrow. And they also lost Anthony Rizzo for 4 to 6 weeks. Two big items there.
Yeah, for sure. So, Rizzo, I feel like Rizzo's a cut.
He hasn't been good this year.
Hasn't been good this year. I don't really know, what you're waiting around for. They called up Ben Rice to replace Rizzo on the roster. So he's someone for me, like in NFBC leagues, I'm going to kind of watch his playing time the rest of the week and see, he's in the lineup today. He's batting 6th. So if he's going to be their everyday first baseman in that lineup, if he's their everyday first baseman and he hits 6 all the time, like I got to have some interest. Like right now today, he's hitting right after Stanton, Verdugo, Judge, like Soto, obviously, like he's heading ahead of Gleyber Torres, who I know is not having a good season, but still, like that's a pretty good spot in a really good lineup. So I'm going to keep an eye on Ben Rice the rest of the week and see if he's someone who I'd like to pick up on the weekend. Yeah.
Rice has had crazy numbers. He's always been a little old for his level. It doesn't look like he's ever going to catch again. We'll see about that. That's one of the things, like, that's fine. Actually, I'd rather have, you might get him as catcher eligible in your leagues, yet be able to see him play at first base. That's like the total win, right? If you get it that way. If you don't get it that way, he's still first base eligible. Yeah, it's still invaluable though. Still someone that we could kind of say, okay, sure, why not? Especially like you said, if he's hitting there at AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. He only played 11 games there so far. He played 49 at AA before that, but a 1059 OPS, that'll play obviously. And the question is like, what's his strikeouts going to look like? What's he going to be able to do? Controlling the strike zone. But all throughout the minors, his strikeout rate has been pretty good. In fact, he's also like a high walk guy too. So kind of wonder why he hasn't been on my radar a little bit sooner.
Well, like you said, old for the level, kind of bouncing around between like what's his final position going to be. Just as an FYI, in Yahoo, he is catcher eligible. I haven't checked yet to see. I guess I won't see him on the NFBC site until tomorrow. So not that I need to rush. I can't do anything about it till Sunday anyways. But anyways, on Yahoo, he is. I don't know. He's not. I don't think he's. Oh, like we'll see. I guess I don't think he's a one catcher guy, which is a lot of Yahoo leagues. But if you have a 2-catcher Yahoo league, he could be an option. Anyways, I think even as a first base option, if he is in the NFBC, we've talked this season about how it's hard to find power on the waiver wire. It's hard to find batting average on the waiver wire. Even though he's been old for his levels, we're talking about someone who's a career 283 hitter, 397 OBP with power and a little bit of speed in the minors. So you throw him in a great lineup, throw him in a good ballpark. You give him 6 weeks with Rizzo out at least. That's all the way to the trade deadline for him to possibly prove himself. So it's not like this isn't like the best prospect in baseball got promoted, but I think it's a really interesting one. How about this? Him or Relvis Martinez? I think I would try Rice just based on the supporting cast, the home park. I think
also the amount of time that, we know for sure that, Rizzo's going to be out. You get Rice probably has a longer bit of a trial there. Plus there's the positional scarcity.
Well, I think with Martinez, like if Martinez hits 2 homers in the next week, he's staying up if Bichette came back. Yeah. Like I think if Martinez hits a couple homers in the first few games or something like that, he's hitting 350 or something when Bichette comes back. I think he just stays. They'll just send Barger down or something. But I think I'd take Rice. Like I said, I just think there's more. I just think the lineup, the park, and his minor league numbers are really good. I think I would take my shot at Rice.
Yeah, I might.
There's a Rice pun there. I just haven't found it yet. Like I was gonna say,
probably a few of them there.
Really cooked with him. Like I was working on it as I was talking that last sentence, but I never really came with it.
Yeah. I'm gonna steer clear. I'm gonna let you guys.
And there's an Uncle Ben's Rice. Oh my goodness, I missed the whole thing.
Yes, you did.
Oh, if someone's listening to this and they have their own podcast, like it's yours. Ben Rice, like Uncle Ben's Rice, like that's right there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the fact that I didn't even think about it, it shows I'm slipping on my game too.
Pun is right there. Yeah. I hope I hear it on someone else's podcast in the next.
Hovering like an angel.
Yeah.
All right. Other news. We got good news in Arizona. Corbin Carroll. Not only did he have a good MRI, he's in the lineup batting leadoff today against the Nats.
Yeah. So it doesn't remind me of the Corbin Carroll thing from last year, but I guess it's just with the shoulder, but like, I guess it's just much ado about nothing. Like we've been through this before where he leaves the game and the sky's falling and then turns out he's fine.
Yeah.
So still not fine. Well, he's been more fine in June. Like in June, he's hitting 273 with 3 steals in half a month. So, okay, it's still maybe not what you're hoping for in the first round with Corbin Carroll, but if he could hit 273 going forward, if he could steal about a half a dozen bases a month, it's still not great. He hasn't hit a home run in a while. Mm-hmm. He sucks. Corbin Carroll was the worst pick ever this year. Like I can't even sugarcoat that, but at least he was usable. In May, he hit 202. In April, he hit 188. Like at least this month, he was usable. I don't have him, obviously. I have him out of all my lineups for the first half of the week. Yeah. So, but at least he's not going to the IL. This was like the Bo Bichette thing. When he went on, when I thought he was going on the IL, I was like, do I even really care about this? Or would I be just as good to just put someone else in my lineup? Because he's not really doing anything for me.
Yeah.
I think I'd still rather have him. I'd still rather take the potential, I guess.
Yeah.
And the heartbreak.
I think I would. I would try to trade for him still. I don't know. I mean, they did the due diligence here, and presumably that means they've done the due diligence on his shoulder too. Yeah.
There was no point, like they must have, because there's no point in keeping him off the IL the way he's played this year if there's something wrong with him. Like just give him a month if there's something wrong with him.
Yeah, especially he's signed under a long-term deal too, so there's all the more reason to protect your asset.
Right,
yeah.
And he's not really helping them win games right now, so get him back to a point where they're in the glob of teams. Get him back to the point where he can help you, escape it.
I agree.
So they must think he's fine.
Yeah, they must. They must. Yeah. All right. We're going to hit our topic of the day, which is mid-round values. But before we do that, another note from our friends at Home Run Forecast. Can certain weather conditions lead to more homers, like this heat wave that's coming through? The atmosphere can affect how far a baseball flies by 20%. Home Run Forecast measures the weather conditions at a ballpark to tell us if the atmosphere is good or bad for ball flight during a game. An index value that rates the air is created for each game and ballpark and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10. Home Run Forecast premium site offers index values by the hour for each game, 24-hour forecasts, wind direction and speed, and even whether the roof will be open at certain stadiums. Home Run Forecast is offering a special for the start of the baseball season. You can get access to the premium site for the entire season for only $28, a savings of nearly 30%. Go to homerunforecast.com/RotoWire now to sign up. We all know how the weather can play an effect. Yesterday, the Reds-Pirates game was delayed by a rain delay, and the Pirates announcers were even making a point. Oh, it's a lot cooler out now. Sure enough, Elliot De La Cruz, first inning, hits a ball he thinks is a home run off of Paul Skenes, barely makes it to the warning track. He was stunned. He thought it was like a comfortable homer, and instead it didn't get out. Shows how much weather can make a difference.
Yeah, excellent point. Well, we always talk about the standard, like weather's warming up, like here comes the offense this summer. Well, let's see if it's happening. If there's an intelligent way to try to track that and use it to your advantage, then I'm all for it.
Yeah. One other note, we all are on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. All right. Thanks for your patience there. Thanks to Blue Wire for being our host. We've been with them for a few years now, so always thankful for them. Let's talk about our topic du jour, which is finding bargains in the mid rounds. And it's weird, like some rounds there haven't been them. And again, we're using ADP from the the main event ADP from the NFBC, which is based on 15-team leagues. That's why we determine the round number and where the players were going. And as we did last week, we're going to go backwards. So last week we did 30 to 20. We're going to do 19 to 10, I think, here today. So let's go ahead and do that. Starting in round 19, no hitters really in that area there, but Jordan Hicks and Paul Skenes were really good bargains there. And Skenes with another good outing yesterday. It looks like he's going to be a really good one.
Yeah, round 19, a bit of a dud. Hicks has given you $4 of value. Nothing that exciting. No hitters gave you any real value. Skenes probably by the end of the year will be worth, who knows, $15 at least, something like that, even with the late start of the season. RotoWire only has him at $1 so far. That was $1 before his start yesterday. It could be a couple dollars now, but anyways, he's going to come up fast. Where would you rank Skenes in pitchers right now? I haven't really looked at or in-season rankings at some of the other sites, but do you think of Skenes as like a top 15 starter, like an ace going forward? Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think he's around 10 or so. Yeah. And the only reason he's not higher is because I'm worried about a September shutdown if the Pirates fall out of it. However, the way we were talking about the NL Glob, I think they're going to be around for a while. So you got 3 really good starters if you count Mitch Keller, and I do count Mitch Keller. And then even tonight's starter, Bailey Falter, has turned in a pretty reasonable year. I don't think they have the hitting to make it all the way, but I mean, every one of these teams in the NL has a big flaw. So just because we're pointing out one with the Pirates doesn't mean, they're any different than anyone else. So yeah, I think they're going to hang around. I think the way they managed Skenes to start the year is their attempt to try to make sure he's around in September.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see Skenes looking way ahead. I could almost see him being a first-round pick next year in fantasy. Like if he keeps up what he's doing, which really is sustainable. Like he's at a 315 BABIP so far. Like he's got that 0.99 whip without any BABIP help at all. So the only reason I can't see him being a first-round pick next year is I just think in this offensive deprived environment, not many pitchers will go in the first round because we'll all be chasing the few hitters who can give us outstanding numbers. But other than that, I think I could see Skenes being like a top 5 starter next year. So wherever that top 5 starter goes, late first, early second, mid second, whatever. But I could see him being drafted that high next year.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah. I could definitely see it.
Yeah.
The only thing is, such a hard thrower.
Yeah.
You're just crossing your fingers, hoping he doesn't fall prey to the injury bug that usually happens with guys that throw that hard.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, Jordan Hicks, I gotta say, that's another one of those players that I doubted a little bit. And continuing trend of the converted reliever to starting pitcher, I doubted, and it's almost universally worked this year. With AJ Puck's over there in the corner, but forget about him for a second there. We're going to forget about him, even though he was more expensive than a lot of these guys. Maybe forget about the outlier that totally disproves the point, but forget about him. But a lot of these converted relievers have worked out really well, and Hicks is definitely one of them so far. He is kind of starting to throw with a little bit less velocity, and that does concern me, but he also has been dealing with an illness lately too.
Yeah, so we'll see if the illness is the problem, but there have been some concerning signs lately. Like he hasn't. Now we knew he probably wouldn't have a lot of length, but at the beginning of the year he had some 6 and 7 inning starts. He was more efficient then. Um, there have been a lot of walks lately. Like he's got 2 4-walk games in his last 3 starts, and there's been a fair amount of runs scored lately. Some of them, no, actually, I was gonna say some of them were unearned, but not really. Yeah, he last time out he did throw 5 shutout innings against the Cubs, but in that 4 hits, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts, so meh, like kind of danced around a bit. The 3 starts before that were all not very good. We could see like things catching up with him, but I feel like if you drafted Hicks in round 19, what you've gotten so far, like if you get a little more, then you've gotten your value out of him in round 19. Like even if he tails off, even if the innings add up, and maybe he's not quite as good in the second half. Like I think you've gotten a good start. You've gotten a good start to the season out of him, but I don't think you were ever expecting 6 months of goodness out of a converted reliever.
No, and you still might not. And same holds true with Gerrit Crochet. You know, that's another one there. And Rono Blanco, I guess he's kind of a converted. He kind of pitched a little relief. He was more of a starter, but anyhow. By the way, I kind of get tired of the hand wringing about Blanco getting pulled during a no-hitter. We just saw the Astros just put another freaking starting pitcher on the IL. You know, they can't afford to overextend Blanco just even one little bit. You know, it's like, yeah, they have to be all about winning games. They can't be worried about chasing the milestones like the second no-hitter. That's the way I feel, at least. I just don't. I feel like it's a succession. You are not serious people, but I know it's just the way I read it there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Anyway, so sidebar aside, we'll move on because there's a lot more that we want to talk about. I know how we ran long last time. Round 18, we have copious options here for top profit guys. On the hitting side, Luis Rengifo and Giancarlo Stanton. On the pitching side, our top earner in this whole group of guys today that we're going to talk about, Seth Lugo, and also Jack Flaherty. And I'm going to make a bold claim right off the top. From this date on to the end of the season, I think Jack Flaherty is worth more than Lugo.
Yeah, I think that's quite possible. So there you go. You gave me your bold claim, and then I didn't say
it wasn't so bold. It was just kind of like a lukewarm claim, a lukewarm take.
When you're giving praise to someone who's already got 100 strikeouts, 5th in the league right now in strikeouts.
Yeah.
Like that it just shows his upside. So I think there's an excellent chance. He's got a .95 whip. Like I think there's an excellent chance there that he is more valuable. Where like really already this year he's got 21 more strikeouts than Lugo, and he's got a way better whip. What Lugo's got is 10 wins. So I mean that's more luck dependent. Lugo's got a bit of a better ERA, but mostly it's the 10 wins to 4 wins. So we know that the wins. So that's an interesting thing. Like when you look at the earned auction value calculator, the wins matter so much. Like wins are so incredibly valuable.
Yes.
But there's a difference between recognizing that wins are so incredibly valuable, which is what the earned auction value calculator does correctly, and building wins into your valuation of a player, which we can't do that much. Like we can't say Lugo's way better than Flaherty because he's won 6 more games. So if we took the wins out of it, Flaherty might already be better. They would already be very, very close.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, Lugo's getting more support from the Royals than Flaherty is from the Tigers. Like the Royals are supposed to be now a team of run support. Yeah, it's weird. The other thing that's weird is Flaherty was never like this control guy, yet he's walked 11 batters all season long. He's got a walk percentage, a minuscule 3.7 walk percentage.
Yeah, Flaherty, he's changed, like you said, like with the walk rate. If there's a takeaway with Flaherty, I guess it's that like maybe we don't, although round 18 was fairly expensive, but maybe we don't totally forget once a pitcher, the old Ron Shanley, like once someone's done something, they own it. Like Flaherty gave us great seasons in 2018 and 2019, and then the injury set in, and he was hurt a lot, ineffective when he was playing. But for those people who just remembered 2018 and 2019 and said, "Hey, there's a really great pitcher in here somewhere, if he can ever be healthy again," that they were rewarded. Like his 2019 season was 196 innings, 275 ERA, .97 WHIP, 231 strikeouts. Like that's a really great season. And that's what he's kind of back to this year. Although, like you said, a little bit different profile with the low walk rate.
Yep, that's right. Hitting side, Stanton's interesting because for me, it's more a matter of like, okay, his price finally matches what he does. He's been a profit here in round 18. Obviously, he's given you 17 homers. He's stayed healthy, which is obviously a big aspect of what he's done. He's hitting for slightly better average. He's still got 190 in him. That could still happen. But there was like a tiny bit of positive buzz on Stanton in the offseason in spring training. Lost some weight, looked like in the best shape he's been in a while. And I actually think those best shape of life things matter, especially for veterans sometimes. But yet the cost didn't trick up that much. He went a little higher than he was at the beginning of draft season, but he also did not go very high at all. I mean, the fact is we're talking about him in round 17 of a 15 team leagues here.
Yeah. And I can't say that Stanton's been like a great player this year. Like his on base percentage is under 300. His OPS is 776. 776 is pretty good in this environment, but it's not amazing. He's someone who's just in this market has perfected what fantasy owners need. Like he's got 17 home runs. He's 8th in baseball in home runs because he's in a good lineup. And he's hit 17 home runs. He's got solid totals in RBIs and runs. And that's what we need. We've talked about this. We can find steals this year. The batting average could be better, but just getting a guy in the second half of your draft who's going to finish the season. Well, we'll see, but he could finish the season with 35 home runs is just really valuable right now. I mean, with Stanton, I can't go too deep into he will finish the season with this because like you already mentioned, like the injury risk is still so great.
Yep.
We're talking about someone who hasn't played in over 110 games since 2021. There were a bunch of injuries in the seasons before that. Like he hasn't been healthy much in the last 5 or 6 years. So we'll just see where it all goes from here. But you've already, again, this is like something I've already said, like with Hicks, like you already got a lot of what like if Stanton got hurt tomorrow and missed 6 weeks, like you already got a lot from him. You got 17 homers in less than half a season.
Yep. The Angels season has been such a malaise. I don't think people realize that Luis Rengifo is hitting 315. He's got you 18 stolen bases this year, and he's doing it at 4 positions for you. I mean, the earned auction value calculator does not even touch the fact that he has multi-position eligibility, especially 4. Todd Zola has done a little bit of a decent job trying to kind of project, how much or try to calculate how much it's worth having those extra positions. So the $19 player that has at 1 position, if you got him at 4 positions, it's probably like a $25 player.
Yeah, that's a really good point for sure. It's hard we have a hard time quantifying that because it's certainly on individual teams. It's very roster dependent. Like maybe you just need him in one spot and he ends up staying there all year. The other positions don't matter, but maybe not. Maybe you have injuries, need to move him around. I could throw cold water on both the last. I could make really good cases that both of the last 2 players are sell highs.
I agree.
Stanton, the obvious sell high. Like I don't know if you can do that in a lot of leagues, but to someone who's desperate for power, you could just say, hey, if you want to trade for Stanton, like you're gonna have to pay up for him because he's on pace for over 35 homers. But like there's obviously the injury risk with him. So maybe you cash out now, depending on how you're doing in power. Rengifo, I wrote about in a Yahoo article a week or 2 ago as a sell high. So his from StatCast, like the gap between his batting average and his XBA is one of the biggest of any player in baseball. So it's close to 60 points. So they still have him as more of like a 255, 260 hitter, which is kind of what he's been in his career. I think he'll keep running because the Angels run. Like the Angels now run this year. Obviously, if he gets a fewer trips to first base, he's going to run a little bit less. But even if he had the 255 average right now, I think he'd still have 14 or 15 steals. Like I think he's going to run. But the rest of it, if he was hitting 255, he's on pace for 10 homers, maybe less. Like I don't know. It's not that special.
Well, and the counting stats are nothing too. I mean, he's got 20 RBI and 27 runs despite hitting 315. It's not like he could do better. It's just the team around him so terrible too.
Right. So I mentioned and given the fact that we can find steals on waivers if we need to. So if I had Rengifo in a trading league, I would look at maybe some people who are lower in the steals standings. Maybe if I could find someone who's lower in batting average and steals, and I could say, hey, look at this guy, 4 positions, addresses both of your statistical needs, and get someone good for him before the batting average sinks.
Yeah. The other thing I'd like to throw out there too this is funny. Talking about this at softball the other day. Who is the Angels All-Star this year? 2 weeks ago, this topic came up and it was a little less obvious, but Rengifo, Taylor Ward, or is it possibly Tyler Anderson? Who is your All-Star on the Angels? Because you have to have somebody.
I guess it's okay. So I'll say it's probably Rengifo because I think he's a cool guy for the All-Star game to round out a roster because he can play so many positions. So you could say, hey, we're going to put this guy in later in the game. We'll figure out later where we're going to put him in. I got to think that baseball is too smart now to put Tyler Anderson in his 2.58 ERA in the All-Star game. Even if he stays at 2.58.
Unless they just need a pitcher, and that's the thing. So many pitchers don't make themselves available, right?
How about Carlos Estevez?
Yeah.
Oh. He's got 13 saves. He's got a 3.52 ERA. He's got a 0.87 whip. He's got a 23-3 strikeout to walk rate. Why not Carlos Estevez?
Why not?
You need a lot of relievers on the All-Star team. So, you need a lot of pitchers on the All-Star team. So why not? Estevez, I think, could be their guy. A total change for him. I don't think people are really talking about him much, and I get it, but he's on pace for 30 saves. And basically the profile going into the year was like, sure, you'll get some saves, but he's going to hurt your ratios.
Sure.
23-3 strikeout to walk. He's another guy who's just quit walking batters.
Smart
he's
play.
He's not going to give in. He's not going to walk you. You're going to have to put the ball in play. We know home runs are down. We know BABIP's down, and he's working that to his advantage. Good for him.
Round 17. The three Ryans, Mountcastle, McMahon, and Jeffers. No pitcher of note, at least of extreme value here.
Yeah, we're going to go through a bit of a desert of pitching. You can see why pitching was early and late, which we talked about last week. So the next few rounds, we're not going to have a lot of notable pitchers. But yeah, three Ryans, I'd say all veterans. I guess Ryan Jeffers is kind of a veteran.
Veteran enough,
Yeah, all just kind of. Yeah, I'd say all just kind of. Yeah, it's his 5th year in the league. Kind of. He played a little bit the first year, but anyways, all just kind of boring veterans. Actually, we could say Stanton, veteran. Rengifo's played a few years in the league. We're not talking about buzzy prospects or second-year guys with any of the 5 hitters we discussed so far, and many of the hitters who we're about to discuss coming up. The grind was real in the middle rounds this year, as far as just grabbing guys in their, mid-20s, early 30s, and who can just play every day and are giving you solid counting stats.
Indeed. Yeah, so all pretty solid. Jeffers has dropped off a little bit to the point where I saw Mike Curlin actually drop him in the main. Only person that did drop him so far, but the last 4 or 5 weeks have been pretty meh. And the playing time starting to reflect that. He's starting to sit out a little bit more in favor of Christian Vasquez.
Really, man, he hit 214 last month, but with power. This month so far has hit 118 with no power. So Jeffers, I have no Jeffers. I know you have some Jeffers. I felt all along
the main event. Yep.
Yeah, I felt all along like he was a power, just another catcher with power but a low batting average. Last year he hit 276, but it came with a 359 BABIP. No catchers keeping a 359 BABIP. No players probably keeping that, but especially not a catcher. Predictably, it's come down about 100 points this year. Batting average has come down too. If I was going to take the over-under on 230 the rest of the way, I think I would take the under. But go get some home runs. Yeah.
For the price, I still did fine. And I think I got him even a round or two later than what he went on average. So I'll take it. That's not my biggest problem right now.
For sure.
Round 16. Here he is again, making you regret that trade. Lourdes Gurriel for the Diamondbacks and Nick Lodolo. As a Jays fan, you're regretting that trade, not as a you for your league's trade. But Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has had some ups and downs. He hasn't been this massive winner, but it's still been a winner nonetheless.
Yeah, like you said, he's had some ups and downs. Just another guy who's just kind of churned out. He's only got 9 home runs. It's pretty boring. It's the 42 RBIs that are keeping him so high on the list, which is probably pretty fluky. I could argue he could be another sell high. Yeah, his hitting's pretty gross this year. He had a few good games at the start of the year, but how about this? He got on our list. How about this? He had an OPS under 600 in April and under 600 in May. In June, he's been better. But It's more just that he's been fortunate to drive in a lot of runs. I would say he would easily be a sell high candidate right now.
I think you're probably right about that.
Yeah.
And it's now that, and especially now that Corbin Carroll is fine and back in the lineup, they still have 5 guys for 4 spots because they're trying to work in Jake McCarthy. They're trying to work in Alec Thomas. They're trying to work in Randall Grichuk, for crying out loud.
Exactly. So if he goes through, and I don't know, they keep playing him. Like, I can't say they're going to sit him when he plays poorly, because we already did this. Like, he already went 2 months over April and May. His OPS was probably just me eyeballing at about 555 for 2 months, 555, and they kept playing him. So I guess they're committed to him. And this may be an old school baseball thing. He keeps driving in runs. Like, he's not playing well. He's not playing well, but he's driving in runs, and maybe that's enough to make the manager say, "Well, we got to keep putting him in the lineup. He drove in a run last night. Let's keep him in." So,
yeah. As we mentioned earlier, Carroll is back in today's lineup batting leadoff. For those of you who joined the podcast late, let's move on to round. Oh, did we talk? Oh, we didn't talk Lodolo actually. This is one I think he could even earn it more because remember he started late.
Oh, absolutely. He's like your poor man Skenes. Like Skenes started late and could go all the way to like whatever to the stratosphere. Lodolo started late. We could see this hasn't even been Lodolo's best as far as strikeouts per inning compared to his previous year. So I could see maybe even a little more upside as he keeps rolling. But yeah, he's for people who I stayed away from him because I was worried about injuries. It's only been 10 starts, and again, he also finds his name on this list because he's won 7 of his 10 starts.
Yeah. That tends to help.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, that just as a reminder that wins matter so much when we're trying to do the player raters here. We're trying to do some evaluation. So, yep, Lodolo has been great though, and one of the reasons why the Reds are still alive is that he's kind of treaded water. The Reds have actually scored some runs when he's been on the mound, which is nice. In fact, Lodolo's debut this year was against Gerrit Cole, and he won that one there. It was a fun pitching matchup there, seeing both of them miss a bunch of bats. Round 15, we got lots of bargains here, including on the hitting side, Jeremy Peña, Starling Marte, Taylor Ward. On the pitching side, Gavin Stone, kind of, not by a huge amount, but still doing well in year 2. I think that's the takeaway. There is a little bit of a last year's bum for Gavin Stone. You kind of like that there. Don't fully give up on these guys when they struggle in their rookie year.
Yeah, and I mean, why did people draft Gavin Stone? Because he pitches for the Dodgers. The Dodgers do well with pitchers, and they win a ton of games. And sure enough, he's got 7 wins in 13 starts. So yeah, he's got a 3.01 ERA, so he's done some things to help himself out to win these games. But on most teams, you're not getting 7 wins in 13 starts, even with a 3 ERA. So that's why you picked him, because he was on the Dodgers. It doesn't always work out quite as well as you hope, but in this case, it certainly has.
Yep. On the hitting side, all 3 of these guys, Peña, Marte, and Ward, are all kind of last year's bums, bouncing back. Good bounce back seasons from all of them. Peña, young enough that you could be someone you could build off of this. Ward was obviously hurt a lot last year, as was Marte. In fact, Marte got hurt 2 days exactly after I traded for him in the staff keeper league when I was trying to add some stolen bases, traded for the wrong guy. It didn't work out. But he's actually someone that, I wanted to say that he'd be an ideal guy for the Mets to trade, but they're doing this stubborn thing where they keep winning. So it makes it impossible to speculate. I mean, right now the Mets, they're not out of it. And in fact, they weathered the storm, and they've won like 10 out of their last 12. They're a game out in the wild card race.
For sure. And I put in our show notes, and I thought this lately, like when I look at their lineup, I think their lineup's not bad.
No, it's not.
We talked about them in the offseason as just a team that could quietly just finish 500, maybe a little better than 500. And in the NL, that can get you into the playoffs. So I think the Mets, we'll see what they do with Pete Alonso, but if they keep him and if he can have a hot streak, he's had a couple of good games lately. Like, he had been pretty cold. He's had a couple of good games lately, but like Lindor could play. Lindor's moved up, and which we figured would happen. Nimmo's been unlucky this year. He's starting to move up, which is great. JD Martinez has heated up. Alonso, Marte's played pretty well. Mark Vientos has solved the problem for them at third base as far as he's hitting.
And Alvarez is back.
Yep. Right. They've got Alvarez back. Jeff McNeil and Harrison Bader are nothing special, but as your 8 and 9 hitters, like they can both hit for average.
Yep.
I think it's not a bad roster. And then their rotation too. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So, anyways, I think this is a team that can sit around 500. Back to Marte from a fantasy perspective. He's broken a lot of hearts before. I don't know if he could be a sell high guy or not. He has played fine this year. He's got 759 OPS. If he could finish this season and where he's on pace, about 15, 16 homers and about 25 steals, that would be amazing.
He's also been a league winner before, though, too. In the case
absolutely.
of Marte,
absolutely.
Remember that trade to the A's?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It was like, oh, he's going to the A's. He probably won't. They're a sabermetric team. He probably won't run as much. No, he went nuts with the A's. 25 stolen bases in 56 games.
Yeah.
He hit 316 in that stretch. He didn't hit for a ton of power, but man, those stolen bases were so huge that year. 47 total for the season.
Absolutely. He is all over the map. Like you said, like that season, 47 steals and hits 310, like he's had other years where he does not hit for average. He has a career 287 hitter. So he does typically overall hits for average. He seems to get dinged up a lot throughout his career, not massive injuries that cost him that's happened, but not usually massive injuries that cost him seasons, but he rarely gets up to 145, 150 games. Anyways, I'd probably just hold him if I had him. I don't think you'll get that much for him. Peña, I find a little bit interesting because he hasn't actually played that well. 699 OPS. He kind of is just someone who fits for fantasy because he's got 10 steals and he's hitting 282. A lot of his value comes from batting average so far this year, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know how good of a baseball player Jeremy Peña really is. I don't know how good of a hitter Jeremy Peña really is.
No, he's probably at the high end of his outcomes. That's all that there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I understand. But he'll go a little higher next year, but he's probably not a top 10 round guy. I think at one point Todd Zola was asking people, would you trade a slumping Lindor for Jeremy Peña? And most people said no on the tout questionnaire. Then those people were right, because Lindor has been a lot better lately too. So
Peña is someone who seems to be just pushing his luck more on the bases. Maybe with the new rules last year, he didn't really push his luck. 13 steals from 11 the year before. This year, he's on pace for over 20 steals. That's really the difference with him. The other categories like home runs, he's on pace for about what he did last year. Batting average is a little better. It's more just that he's running a little more.
Exactly.
And Taylor Ward, the third guy from the group, he started out hot. I feel like he's cooled off a bit. I don't have a number to put on that.
He has, and his counting stats are way worse because they lost Mike Trout, and that just turned the whole offense into crap. Basically,
I should say, just to be specific, he's actually completely cratered in June. I knew he had tailed off of it. April OPS 784, May 795, June 469. He is hitting under 100 this month.
I know that because I have him on my main event team.
But he was
beautiful for a while. Yeah, I'm still leaving him in there. He was hurt a little bit last week too, which is a pain in the butt. But here we go. Hey, we're running along, so let's go rapid fire on some of these guys here. Round 14, Isaac Paredes is the hitter. Kyle Finnegan is the pitcher. Both worth $14 according to RotoWire's earned auction value tool. Who is this year's Kyle Finnegan? Oh, it's Kyle Finnegan. It's funny how that's worked out. I love Hunter Harvey. I still think he's a better pitcher, and I was trying to add Harvey in a lot of drafts. Turns out it's Finnegan anyhow, still again.
Yeah, I kind of promoted Finnegan when we were talking at the beginning of the year, just with the whole a bird in the hand. He's the guy who has the closer's role, and his career ERA going in the year was about 3.5, and I was like, that could be good enough on a probably not playoff team. But again, they're in the clump, but on a not playoff team, that could be good enough to hold the closer's role. So there's a guy who, come on, the Nats are not ready to contend. Why not trade Kyle Finnegan in July? He's clearly pitching he's way over his head. His FIP's 432. I don't know if any major league teams are dumb enough to believe in the 178 ERA, the 20 saves. I don't think you're going to get much for him. So maybe it's not worth it. But come on, why are the Nats trying to be the last playoff team with this roster?
Yeah, exactly.
I would try. I think given how much relievers get hurt, Kyle Finnegan could easily come back and have a 5 ERA next year. If he's still pitching well in the second half of July, I think he's a really good trade candidate. So there's multiple reasons to sell high on him right now in trading leagues.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next player, next round. And that is round 13. Nolan Gorman, Daulton Varsho, Vinny Pasquantino are the hitters. Brian Wu is the pitcher. Woo's numbers are, obviously, he hasn't earned a ton yet because he's been hurt, including like some on and off, like missed one start. So he's getting you nothing for a week sort of guy. But when he's been on the mound, he's been great.
Yeah, amazing. Has some Mariners, I can't quote them off the top of my head, but anyway, has some Mariners records for best 6 starts at the start of the season. It's weird that we're talking about best 6 starts at the start of the season in the middle of June.
Right.
But that's where it's at. He missed a month at the start, and he's missed the last couple of weeks. And you're right, he messed up some people using their lineup last week, but done not a ton of strikeouts, but 2 walks in 33 and 2/3 innings. That'll play. So he's an excellent pitcher. It's just we'll see what the health is like. Going forward from those hitters. Varsho StatCast says has really overperformed. But I will say his playing time is locked in.
Yes, it is.
He's one of the few Blue Jays who's done something offensively this year. He also defensively, like just as someone who watched all their games, like goes full out, really impresses people, can play center, can play left. Like that, like they love him. He's super smart base runner. He does all the little intangibles. So he's going to play. And Gorman has done Nolan Gorman things where he's had these abysmal stretches and then had these scorching stretches where he seems to homer every day for a few days.
Yeah. And at one point he was at risk of losing playing time and even maybe getting sent down. And that's no longer the case. And you know what? He's one of the keys to the Cardinals playing better. When he started hitting, they desperately needed power. He's provided it.
How about this? He has 1 hit in his last 6 games. He has 2 hits in his last 9 games. He's just cooled back off. This is who Nolan Gorman is, though. Like he had a stretch where he hit 6 homers in about 8 games. And then since then, he hasn't really done much. But if you leave him in your lineup, you'll probably get another one of those stretches at some point as he works his way to probably a close to 30 homer season.
Wanted to clarify on our Nats comment here. I mean, I'm saying that roster is not good enough as it stands. I still think they should try to make the playoffs. I don't think they should be selling off. I think they should be looking to improve. And if that includes improving on Finnegan, so be it. But more, I just think they need to upgrade at a couple of spots. And I know Wood might be coming at some point. I know he's been hurt, but I do think they need to upgrade still if they think they're a playoff team.
Yeah. So if you ran the Nats, you would not just sell off and just say, guys, like we got some really impressive things going on here, but we're still a year away.
Yeah, I don't think the sell-off helps that usually. Right. And in fact, young teams get there quicker than you think. In a year where so many other teams in the NL are underachieving, I think you may do go for it trades instead. As a Reds fan who on a team who did not try to go for it last year, I hated it at the time. I hate it more now. The fact that they let an opportunity go by. I don't think they would have compromised themselves in the long run by going for it. I think, and yes, it takes the right player. Inventory has to be available. I get all of that. I still think they should have gone for it more, and they did. They didn't go for it at all. That is the point. Right. I think that should go for it. I think they should try to make the playoffs. I think making the playoffs is valuable in and of itself.
Right. If they were going to sell off, it actually probably would just be Finnegan and maybe Harvey. Right. You got 2 relievers, one over 30, one just under. They don't have that much else to sell off. Like they're not trading young pitchers in a sell off. That's part of their future. Nobody's given them anything for Joey Meneses or Jesse Winker. So there's not like Nick Senzel. They're not getting anything for him. So the sell off would be to just trade a couple of relievers and get some prospects for them. I don't know. Well, I think it'll play itself out. We'll see how they do the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Yep. I'd agree with that. All right. Moving on to the next round. Round 12. Okay. This is the biggest one on our list. Yeah. Marcell Ozuna has been massive earner, $46 according to our auction value tool. My question to you is not, is he for real and all that, but what sort of discount do you give for a player that's UT only? If we're drafting today, obviously he doesn't go in the 12th round, but where does he go? Where should he go?
Well, if I was drafting today, I wouldn't even care that UT only is playing so well this year.
Right.
I don't do much of it. I don't drop players by much in my rankings for being UT only. Around, not even around, I don't mind getting someone who's UT only. We've made that mistake with Ohtani so many times.
And a David Ortiz before that.
David Ortiz. Oh, absolutely. And I was one of the biggest David Ortiz owners. People would drop him because he's UT only. And I was like, whatever, I'll take the 120 RBIs and figure out the rest of my lineup, especially if we're looking at a baseball league like we have right now, where it's hard to generate offense. Give me the guys who can generate offense. Ozuna, the question is like how much of this is for real? But you know what? The 358 BABIP's not for real. Like his batting average is going to come down, but he hit 40 home runs last year. It was just a little overshadowed, I think, because the Braves lineup was so incredible overall. So you didn't really talk about Ozuna hitting 40 home runs when Acuna has one of the greatest offensive seasons, you know, especially in fantasy that we've seen. And, you know, Riley has a great season, and we could just keep going on and on and on. But Ozuna hit 40 home runs last year. He might do it again for back-to-back years. Maybe that was the takeaway for us, is it was staring us right in the face. We had a guy who hit 40 home runs last year, and we left him all the way till whatever it was, around pick 140.
Rest of season, Pete Alonso or Marcell Ozuna?
Oh, that's a really good one. I have so much Alonso that I want to say his name really badly. But I don't really see why. I'm going to say Ozuna.
I'm going to say Ozuna too, but I just want to say
really tough one.
There is a real cost to locking up your UT. When injuries strike, right, and you've you have some multi-position players, but it doesn't matter because your UT is still locked up. And especially if you don't have the multi-position players, that's when it's really a problem. When you've got 6 outfielders, you can only play 5 of them. And meanwhile, there's that, you know, you're hurting. You're hurting for that other that sort of pivoting there. You got to bench somebody there. So it goes.
You're right. Actually, if I want to backtrack on that, corner infield has been such a cesspool this year that I might not be able to make the trade. Like I may not be able to trade Alonso for Ozuna because I may have to put Gio Urshela in my corner infield slot. I literally have him in my corner infield slot on one team, and I'm not happy about it. Like I would rather play around with that utility. I have a lot of teams with 3 good second basemen or 4 good middle infielders. So maybe the trade goes the other way. Maybe if you've got Ozuna, but you've got a total whole like corner infield, maybe you go the other way and take your chances on Alonso because you'd rather play around with your utility spot the rest of the way.
Because you're stuck with Brian Hayes as your third baseman. I might be speaking from experience on that, but
right. I don't know if I have any teams where I could trade away Alonso. And like, I'm thinking of even my NFBC teams, if I could trade, like, I don't know if I have any teams where I could trade away Alonso and just plug in another good corner infielder.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I have any rosters where I have a corner infielder for example, with a multi-position eligibility in a different spot in my lineup. It'd be very, very few.
Yep. Exactly. Others there are Michael Garcia, who we spent some time on before, and Mason Miller. Now Miller is now full-time closer that can go 2 innings at a time. That's a beautiful thing. You're getting all those beautiful strikeouts. It's been, the A's have devolved back into being a joke of a team again. So he's not getting that many save chances lately.
That's right. And I know people are like, oh, everyone wants him traded this summer to a contender. I don't know. I don't think that happens. Do you?
I was pretty strident against, and then immediately after I was strident against, that's when the rumors started firing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they get a Godfather offer for him. They do it. If they don't, they keep him.
I just don't. Yeah, it's possible. I just don't know if you get a Godfather offer for someone who's working as a reliever when teams can go out and just grab you know what I mean? Grab 2 or 3 for really cheap. You can grab 2 or 3 relievers who've got a 2.5 or a 3 ERA. I just don't know if they get the Godfather offer. I know everyone wanted Baltimore because of the farm system, but Kimbrel's pitched fine. Actually, Mason Miller would be they could bring him in and not even close. Like, leave Kimbrel, the guy who's closed forever. Put Mason Miller to pitch 2 innings at a time in the 7th and the 8th of close games. That would be really cool for Baltimore, and just be like, okay, you guys got a 3-3 game in the 7th inning. We're going to put Mason Miller in the next 2 innings, and then our offense is going to take the lead. That would be a good way for Baltimore to attack it.
It would be. I'd like to see it, but at what cost?
Rather than as a closer,
So we'll see if that happens. But hey, flags fly forever too.
Absolutely.
All right, round 11: Christopher Morel, Anthony Santander, Riley Green, all hitters that returned pretty good value. Especially Riley Green, who's really hit that special level this year. On the pitching side, Mitch Keller. Also hitting he's been better lately rather than early too, which you'd like to see. But I want to focus on Riley Green because, he's stuck in a lineup that's really bad around him. Other young hitters have, not developed like Green has, like Torkelson's back in the minors. Now Green, I think it was up before Torque, and, also is a different type of player because he can help you so much with his legs. But nonetheless, this is, I just think that is there another level left in Green? Like, how high are you drafting him next year?
Yeah, I'm not yet like fully bought in on this because well, we'll see. If he can be a 30 homer player who hits the top of the lineup, then I would say I'm pretty bought in. A big part of Green's value this year is that he's on pace to score over 100 runs. That flies in the face of them not having a great lineup, but he always hits at the top of it. And you can get 100 runs, he gets on base, or he's 349 this year and was 349 last year. Like, you can score 100 runs in a slightly below average lineup. So, and Detroit's a tough place to hit in April. So maybe their lineup will be a little better. Maybe Torque comes back up at some point and actually contributes to it. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know how early I'll draft him next year, but if he keeps this going from it's the power that's really got me excited.
Sure.
If he keeps that going from a power perspective and could be like close to a 30 homer leadoff man, I think he'll come out pretty high in my valuation system, even if he's only like a 7 or 8 steal guy. And there's some potential there. Like, in the last 2 years, he's stolen 10 bags and hasn't been caught. Like, maybe he could run a little bit more. I don't know. They don't seem to think so. But maybe his batting averages the last 2 years were high BABIPs. This year it's not. So that's even a little more encouraging to me. Yeah, I have no Riley Green this year, but I'm starting to kind of buy in.
Yeah, I'm buying in. I offered Luis Heel for him in AL Tout Wars. Was not accepted, by the way. But
it feels fair, but just given the dearth of offense, hard to make that in some leagues. But Riley, but it feels fair.
Yeah. By the way, Dr. Dumas, Riley Green or Taylor Ward, Green, and it's not even close for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take Green over every hitter we've discussed going through these players for the rest of the season, except Ozuna. I think I have to take Ozuna. He's just been so good.
Green versus Yariel Garcia is also pretty good, pretty close. We didn't really spend a whole lot of time on Garcia, but I'd agree with you on that too. All right, last round, round 10. Sal Perez, he's always there. Jose Barrios and Bryce Miller are the pitchers. Barrios, I think my perception is he's slowed down lately. I don't know if that is the case, but it's probably And Miller, I'm super excited about. I think he's filthy nasty.
Yeah, with Barrios, I put him in the trade article as a sell high a couple weeks ago, and he's been doing that. He's had his ERA has been going up a little bit. I don't think Barrios is going to be awful, but he's not striking very many batters out. This isn't the best Barrios we've seen. Like, the FIP's 455, so I'd still try to sell high on him. Yeah, Miller's really exciting. I totally agree with you on that. It is impressive the way the Mariners have pitched themselves to such a great lead in their division. I'm fully on board with Miller. And Sal Perez, another boring veteran on the list. The value of Sal Perez is not just that he's been so good. It's that drafting Sal Perez in round 10 probably kept you out of all the disappointing catchers that followed him. Like, he kind of went right at the start or early in the mix of like 7 catchers who went in about rounds 10 to 12. And he's the one who's played really well. And the other guys have just been so bad that, but anyways, he's cooled off a lot. He's had a really bad June. He had a good enough May, not special, but a good enough May, and an amazing April. He has definitely cooled off.
Yeah.
I don't know where this Royals lineup goes from here. They're a little over their skis. If you compared their runs scored with some of their other metrics, like OPS, things like that, like, they probably shouldn't have scored quite as much as they have so far. So I'm interested to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Luis says he offered Isaac Paredes for Luis Robert Jr. If the guy says yes to that, say thank you very much. And, don't ever speak ill of that opposing owner again, because you're getting a grand theft roto there if you can pull that off. But at the same time, I would almost offer a sweetener to make sure it passes league muster so it doesn't get rejected. It's such a good trade in your favor. All right, that's going to wrap up today's pod and our series there. Thanks for all the great interaction in the chat room. Really appreciate those who are streaming along with us. And of course, those of you who downloaded the podcast after the fact. If you like the podcast, please like and subscribe to the podcast. It's free to do. And please rate and review if you can. And also, if you want to check out RotoWire, rotowire.com/pod. Big thanks to our sponsors at Home Run Forecast and DraftKings with the Pick6 app. Use code RWPicks for that new special on Pick6. And for Home Run Forecast, homerunforecast.com/RotoWire. We got James Anderson coming at you tomorrow. Thanks for listening to RotoWire. Take care.